Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
Okay, welcome to Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jonathan Brickman. Today I've got Dan Veroff from Merlin Law Group. Welcome to our show, Dan.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So listen, just to kick this thing off, to get started, since that's the theme of the show here, what's your favorite morning beverage to get you started?
It's got to be an oat milk cappuccino from a home machine I have that I got a few months ago, and I don't think I've bought a coffee since.
Excellent. So no Starbucks for you. Everything's at home. Yeah, particularly these days.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I buy what's ever on sale at my local grocery store, and I have about 3 or 4 cups during the day.
Oh yeah. I've had my morning double serving, and what is it, 9:45 now? So after this, I think I'm going in for round 2.
Well, you're on the West Coast. I'm already into the afternoon, so keep going.
Yeah, you're about 4.
Exactly. Well, listen, tell us something about yourself. You know, what you do. I see that you're looks like you deal with a lot of big claims and wildfires. Give us a little bit of information about what you do.
Sure. So I'm an insurance policyholder lawyer. This is what I've done my whole career, and I am mostly involved with what we call first party claims. And this would be an insurance situation where there's something that, the policyholder owns, or it's their person that's harmed, right? So a health claim, a fire claim to your home. The other type of insurance we mostly refer to as third party cases. And that's when the person who's insured harms someone else. Maybe you hit someone in a car, or they trip and fall in your home, right? So I focus mostly on the first party side. I help a lot of individuals who lose their homes in fires, individuals who have health claims that are denied for one reason or another. We also do a lot of commercial work. Here we represent a number of wineries who've had losses to grapes and facilities in the wildfires. So only insurance and a limited subsection of insurance, but there sure is a lot of variety under that narrow umbrella.
Oh yeah, actually, it's fun. It's not funny, but I got a call. I forget how many years ago, but it was my cousin. She said, "Have you watched the television?" She was in Paradise, California, and everything got leveled. So did you work on that case?
Oh, we worked on a number of cases from the Paradise fire, and it's amazing how long some of these cases can take, and how long after the fires they can get to us. Because sometimes, a fire will happen and the problem is immediately knowable, right? There's some issue with the insurance not being in place, or there not being enough insurance, and we come in right away. But then there are folks who have a claim and they spend a year, 2 years going through the process with the insurance company. And then just at that point, they realize something is not working out and they need a lawyer. So I filed a lawsuit last month from the Paradise fire, which was 2018.
Wow.
And I got a call from someone who was looking for help from a 2017 fire yesterday. Now that's a little older, but I mean, just to give you the flavor of it, these things can stick around forever, many years at least, when they're in our hands.
Okay.
Yeah. But we do a lot of wildfire work. So we've done a number of individuals, businesses, wineries up in the wine country fires in Northern California. We seem to have those almost every year. We did a lot of fun work down in Los Angeles when the Woolsey fire tore through Malibu. We had a lot of fun celebrity clients, met some very interesting people back then. So we run the gamut, but I was telling you before we started, I'm working on a claim right now involving a really large sewage backup into a home that resulted in personal injuries. We just deal with any and all sorts of insurance problems that come up, and insurance may sound boring, and it is, but it can be exciting too. And since all these wildfires around here, I've become a little more interesting at parties, I'd say.
I would think, yeah, you're gonna get more and more activity, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll tell you what, there's so much devastation from these fires. I'm okay with no more fires ever again. You know, we'll be fine with just the amount of business that comes from what's already happened. So, you know, I can only hope that these disasters don't continue to happen, but I can tell you they probably will. And the insurance industry just keeps getting rattled by them. And so the insurance industry is just getting tougher to work with on these.
Yeah, I would think so,
Not
yeah.
getting easier.
What things, in your opinion, do you see helping to mitigate some of these disasters?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is a booming area, I would say. So recently, the California Insurance Commissioner tried, and I think successfully, got some regulations passed, which will allow insurance pricing and decisions from companies to insure folks, you know, to take into consideration efforts made to what we really call hardening homes or hardening properties. That's the buzzword. But, you know, I mean, you want to get rid of any brush, you know, on the yards in your place, you know, up to 4 to 6 feet for some carriers, you know, just the branches don't go that low. You know, you want to clear things off that are touching your roof. There are new building materials that you can do. You can, you know, hire companies to harden your home. And I've heard from a lot of folks that these also result in energy efficiencies and make the home more comfortable. So I think it's becoming more and more popular, and it's going to become an incentive to, you know, get insurance companies to keep giving people insurance, because a huge issue is people are just having trouble getting insurance at all. So getting people insurance, getting the cost down, reducing the risk of, you know, tragic loss in a wildfire. So you know, things are slow, but hopefully that's going to be something people adopt, because otherwise we just can't really live in these urban wildland interfaces anymore.
No, absolutely. I've seen some interesting business. I saw a business a while ago where somebody literally was going after these high value assets and protecting them with, you know, coverings, right? They had a business just doing that.
Yeah, so we currently have a case with, I'd say it's about $10 million home from the Malibu wildfires, and the home was saved because, you know, the owner, who has plenty of resources, had about 50 grand to spend on a private firefighting force, right? So you see these private firefighting forces,
Their own firefighting force, no kidding.
and some companies, like for example Chubb, who is sort of known as a luxury carrier, right? They're asking their policyholders to enroll in these wildfire mitigation programs that give the company permission to send, you know, the kind of firefighting force, or to send a water truck to sit in your neighborhood and spray your house. And the carriers always say, hey, you know, if you enroll in this program, you can't sue us if we damage your house from the water, or, you know, we harm it by preventing a total burn. So, you know, it's interesting. It's not completely risk-free to the policyholder, but, you know, it's just another example of, I mean, we have to do something to diminish the damage from these wildfires, because we just may lose insurance companies from participating in our state at all. And at that point, it becomes extremely hard to own property.
Yeah, no, I can see that. So let me ask you a question. So how do you prepare for these cases? How do you get ready to make sure that you're going to win and get the most for your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say the majority of our work ends up in litigation. We are able to resolve a lot without litigation, and doing that really just requires getting all the pieces in order, you know, getting professionals to assess what the actual scope of work to repair, rebuild a house is, right? Working at those numbers, doing it strong up front, and doing it legitimate, no overinflation, no asking for $1 more than you're entitled to. And sometimes that can work, but other times we do have to litigate them. And when you litigate a case, you know, 98% of cases, civil cases, will settle before trial, and insurance cases will settle more than that, because insurance companies are in the business of evaluating risk. And if you're good at this job from my perspective, you know that, and you learn how to convey to the insurance company what their risk is, right, in an objective way. And so you learn how to speak to the insurance company, speak to the person making the decision in their own language, and that can certainly help. So most of these cases will resolve at one point or another. They can get tricky because in California and many states, if the insurance company not only mishandles the claim, but does so unreasonably or in bad faith, then there's these extra damages, extra monies they might have to pay in court. So in that sewage case I mentioned, it was mishandled, they didn't pay everything they owed, but also these people have severe personal injuries, right? And now the insurance company can be liable for them. So some cases, the stakes just are so high, but typically they all will resolve before any kind of trial. You know, we'll have big motions in court where we'll need to take our depositions, present all our evidence, have the judge confirm that, yes, we have a good enough case to go to trial. And then most cases, even the toughest ones, will settle after that. If we do have to go to trial, you know, we really try to speak to the jury, you know, let them know that, hey, this is something that happened to our clients. It's something that can happen to you. You know, the insurance industry needs frequent reminders that, you know, they'll be punished if they're not held accountable. And juries are really the only way to do that in most states. The government can only do so much. So through a combination of all those tactics, we're usually able to eventually convince the insurance company, you know, it should pay a certain amount to avoid a potential runaway jury verdict if the conduct is bad enough. And so fingers crossed, that's worked a lot. Clients have been made whole and very happy without having to go to trial. I could go on and on this, but trial.
Yeah. No, I'm sure.
It's unpredictable no matter what. It's always rolling the dice. So it's advisable to try to avoid it, but we work up the cases from day one as if they're going to trial, because that's the best way to get the results for your client, to show you're prepared, know how you do it, tell the insurance company exactly what you're going to do to them in trial in a professional way. And if you get that message across, you can be effective.
Got it. That makes sense. So how do you do that? You do focus groups, you have expert witnesses, you do mock trials, do you do all those things?
We do. So my firm and myself, we only practice in this area of law, nothing else. This is all I've ever done. So come into it with a good amount of background knowledge to assess cases, but that we are always bringing in experts to assist. We're bringing in folks who have worked at the insurance companies, who've been responsible for ensuring the insurance adjusters are doing things right, so they can comment on what the industry standards are and tell us, these are the best practices that should have been implemented. Mm-hmm. These are the ones that haven't, right? And then we'll have our expert consultants who can tell us things about, you know, okay, what was the cause of the fire? Or, you know, what are the structural damages, right? Maybe we need an engineer to assess a structural issue. So we'll retain an engineer for that. Maybe there's a soils issue, right? We'll retain a soils engineer. And then, you know, when you're just working up also the basic repair estimate or rebuild estimate, these days, it's not like you just go to your contractor, they give you a back of the envelope number and the insurance company pays it. So the insurance industry uses a software called Xactimate, and you can get these 100-page estimates for a relatively not large project. And they go room by room, item by item, stud by stud, nail by nail, the quantity, right? And the program is pretty neat. It's not perfect, but for a standard house, you can put all that in there. And it gathers data and tells you what the prices should be, right? And that's a starting point. And then you have to go out and talk to contractors what they're actually charging in the field. So there's a lot of prep work just to prove, you know, what is the scope of work on the home? How much does it take to restore it, right? What are the different trades we have to get involved? We have to prepare, hire all those people and bring them in. Because, for example, an insurance company adjusting a claim will do that some of the time, right? If there's a need for an engineer, they'll bring an engineer. But there's so many engineering firms and contractor firms that exist to serve insurance companies only. And over the past 5-10 years, these firms have gobbled each other up and grown. And so you have these very large contractor firms or engineering firms that are serving the insurance industry over and over and over again, right? So even though the insurance company may be getting this for you, you can't necessarily trust it, unfortunately. And so we always do this due diligence.
Well, you're diametrically opposed. I mean, right? The one side's trying to minimize the payout, and you're trying to maximize it, or at least get what you think is fair.
Yeah. Well, we you know, by the time we as lawyers come into this, typically there's already been progress on the claim to some degree, and maybe the policyholder has had their contractor give an estimate, or maybe they've had, you know, an adjuster they hired to help them who's done some of this work. So a lot of the times when we come in, we may not be reinventing the wheel from the ground up, but we may be looking through the work that others have done, hired our own consultants to support it, you know, but we really like to get away from this trend in the industry for the policyholder to go really, really high and the insurance company to go really, really low and find somewhere in the middle. We just really want to get it right and then stick to those guns, because I don't think it does the client a service to sort of.
So it's very technical as opposed to like personal injury, right? Where, you know, the verdict can be more subjective. I mean, yours is very technical. You've got a product, you've got contractors that can, you know, validate the cost of repair, et cetera, right?
Yes, it's extremely technical. You know, there is a huge sort of emotional distress factor to some of these cases.
There is, okay.
If it becomes what we call a bad faith case from very poor claims handling, we can ask for things like, you know, delay damages, you know, an extra year of housing. Well, you know, look how frustrating it was for this person to deal with. The jury can award monies for those.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's highly technical. And so, you know, asking a jury of laypersons who a judge will ensure have no knowledge of construction or insurance, you know, in a trial, I have to teach them, here's what insurance is. It's not what you think it is. Here's what, you know, the construction process is. I have to teach a jury all of this background just so I can start telling them what our position on the other side is. So it becomes a huge challenge. Now there is a mechanism to try to resolve those technical disputes before a trial, and it's by law in every one of these insurance policies. It's called appraisal, but it's not the word as you normally know it. Appraisal is outside of court, and everyone hires their own, what we call an appraiser. And then the appraisers hire or they choose an umpire, right? And then the two appraisers, you know, one for each side, they submit to the umpire what their position is, what the—
like a mediator. Just another word for a mediator.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mediator, but it's binding. So the umpire can make this determination before trial, and that can resolve a lot of the technical issues. Those cases still can go to a trial later, though, because what if the insured is saying, hey, it's $1 million claim, and the insurance company says it's $100,000 claim. Then they go to the appraisal process. The umpire says it's a $1 million claim. That's binding number. That decision is there. And then you get to go and say, hey, look, we spent $50,000 on the appraisal process just to learn that the claim we submitted was the right amount and the insurance company was, you know, $900,000 too low. Then you can go to the trial, ask for, you know, costs incurred, attorney's fees, the emotional distress things we're talking about.
How often does that happen where you get those kind of damages?
The sort of emotional—
yeah.
So the burden of proof, what we have to show a jury for them to be allowed to start awarding those, is not terribly high. It's what we call unreasonable conduct, right? Below the industry standard. So it's not that hard to get a jury to always say the insurance company was being unreasonable here or there. But I like to think of it as, you know, how much money is the jury going to give you for it, right? Okay, so if they find the insurance company acted unreasonable, which, okay, they do a lot, right? It's not that hard to find that. So maybe the jury can award you some of your attorney's fees. Okay, so you can get that. and they can award you some emotional distress damages, but what's the amount they're going to come up with? It's really hard to figure it out. So, you mentioned focus groups. We can do focus groups and see, is this case one that really is going to enrage a jury? Or is it one where a jury is going to be like, yeah, I see your point, but it's kind of a toss up. They had an engineer, you had an engineer. And, as you can see, these cases become very expensive
Sure.
to litigate. And so, if you have a case where there's a good chance of getting those emotional distress damages, things like that, it increases your odds of at least getting the person, without a risky trial, enough money to put everything back together without being in the hole a little bit, right? Because if you go to trial and you don't get those things like emotional distress, you don't get your attorney's fees paid for, maybe you get the $1 million to rebuild the house, but maybe you're netting 600,000 or 700,000, right? And so we really try to work to avoid that problem, to maximize the recovery for folks, and to do what's in their best.
Are you working on contingency as like other plaintiff attorneys as well?
Yeah, we do work mostly on contingency. We do a few other arrangements now and then. Sometimes if a winery has a $50 million loss, they just don't want to pay you, 1/3 of $50 million, and that's fine. So we do, for clients like that, we do end up working hourly. But I do think clients get better representation when the attorney has a piece of it. It keeps us motivated, and especially when that's how other clients are paying. You
Sure.
want to make sure your case gets the same level of attention from the attorneys. And then in these types of cases, again, if you do win, the insurance company acted unreasonably, you can get those extra attorney's fees as damages. So hopefully we pick our cases well, and we can tell clients, your case is a candidate where at the end of the day, if you settle, at least, the insurance company can pay our attorney's fees and you don't have to worry about that, right?
Got it,
It's
got it.
sad when the case isn't strong enough for that. And even though you win, the person still only has 60-70% of what they need. And so, unfortunately, I don't create that problem. The insurance company creates it. And if that problem didn't exist, I would go find another area of law to practice. But
Right. Yeah.
for now, people seem to need us.
Excellent. Let me ask you a question. An interesting discussion. Is there any one case that's more memorable for you that stands out?
So there are many cases. One that I think I'll never forget, and there are some that stand out in bad ways too, but I'll focus on the good. One I'll never forget was a disability insurance case I did. It was the first case that I was allowed to work on fully on myself as a young attorney. And it was a woman who was an administrator for the University of California system. She was a single mother with a young kid, and she was diagnosed with a very bad stomach cancer. She had extremely aggressive treatments, and had it removed, it was taken care of, but she lost her job because of it. And the chemotherapy that she underwent just had these very lasting disabling effects. And her disability insurance company denied her claim, treated her horribly. She was out on the street. And she was, because of how the chemotherapy had affected her mind, she was very susceptible to, we were just worried, we were going to hear that she had passed or something.
Sure.
And we went to a mediation relatively early-ish in the case, and it was a fantastic result. And I remember the defense lawyers were not doing their normal thing of trying to diminish and pay as little. They were very apologetic. And it was just life-changing money for this woman. And it's not the only case I've had like that, but it was the first. And it's one of those that, keeps motivating me. I mean, I was telling you about this sewage backup case I'm working on, and I've been writing a 30-page brief on it all week. And it kills me to write it. It's so much work, so much evidence to go through. But I just think about the clients, and I just think about, I'm doing this for them, and they deserve me to give this 200%, even if my eyeballs feel like they're going to explode out of my head at the end of the week. So it's cases like that keep me going, because this is, no matter how well you do at this business, I'll tell you, it's a grind. The insurance companies fight.
Sure.
let up. Nothing comes easy.
Well,
And
that's what makes it work, right? You have this tug of war, and hopefully you arrive at something that is equitable for both sides.
yeah, exactly. And some of those cases, there are tug of wars that make sense. There's meaningful disputes. The insurance industry, I'd say, past 20 years has really cleaned up its act. So you see less of these just egregious cases,
Yeah.
but you still see the egregious cases. They're cases where things fall through the cracks. They're just not handled right because of some poor staffing or, failure to invest in the adjuster at the insurance company. They know very little what they're supposed to do. So those cases still do happen, and they are devastating. And the system works in those cases as well, even though they can be more one-sided. But eventually we like to think we get to the right number, and
Yeah. No, I hear that through the attorneys that I talk to. I mean, they express that sentiment that you feel like you're doing work, go to work, and you're trying to help your clients, which is good. It's admirable. I mean, I'm glad that humanity exists.
yeah, there's ways you can
Good
help your
stuff.
clients, and there's ways you can help yourself as a lawyer. The term jackpot justice comes to mind. I mean,
Yeah.
there are lawyers out there certainly who are more than capable of getting their clients a very, very great settlement that'll make them happy and eliminate risk. Yet we see those lawyers treating every case like it's World War III and spending tons of money that their clients eventually will have to pay for out of their results, and putting their cases through all these risky scenarios because 1 out of 20 might hit that jackpot, and then those other 19 clients, who cares? And we're just not like that at all. I mean, we have no problem taking your case to trial, but like I said, the insurance companies are in the business of risk evaluation, and if you can work up the case correctly and present it to them correctly, they should be able to evaluate that risk
Yeah.
and make the case go away without your client either getting back in their home or losing everything, not seeing a dime, and being in the hole.
So it's true that every case you're preparing as if you're going to trial, right? So you have the most leverage and ammunition, strongest case.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, I tell clients, brand new clients, hey, I can settle your case within 5 minutes. It's not going to be for a number that you'd like, but I can do it. The idea is that you can always create risk with a case. You can always create a value with the case that you can resolve it for before trial. But when you're doing that, everyone is thinking about, what is this case worth at trial? Because that's the measure, right? And so we need to figure that out. We need to figure out fast, how are we presenting this case? What's our evidence? Who are our experts? Is a jury going to like it? What do we predict at this early stage in the case a jury might do? And then let's take that number, and then let's walk it back based on costs that need to be incurred between now and then, the time factor, the various events that still need to happen in the case that may increase your value, may decrease your value. And so in that sense, every case has a value every single day until the trial, right? But the only way to determine that value is to say what could happen at trial, and to constantly reevaluate that. So that's how we look at cases all the time. I know there are some firms out there who try to get it settled, and if they can't, they pass it off to another lawyer who's a litigator. That's not really something you can do in this practice area. It's so complex. You just need to be capable of knowing how to take it to trial from day one. And then maybe you won't have to take a case to trial more than once a year or so, because most of the time you'll get a rational person on the other side who will see what's going on and work with you to get it resolved at some point or another before the big showdown.
Got it. That makes sense. So let me ask you this. So tell me why you decided to become a lawyer, and what advice would you give to somebody today who's thinking about becoming a lawyer?
Sure. Wow. You should learn as much as you can about the practice of law before going into it. I was motivated to be a lawyer because I joined the high school debate team, and I just really loved it. I mean, it was one of those things I was good at. They say people like what they're good at. And so I enjoyed it. And I knew pretty much from then I was going to go to law school. I decided to get an insurance law when I was in law school. It was a combination of everyone wanted to go into tech, and I had all these people who were smarter than I in law school, and I didn't want to compete with them. And then I really liked my tax law professor, so I took his insurance law class, and there were 10 people in it, and I loved it. It's like a David versus Goliath story every time. So it really motivated me, and I've just been doing it ever since. It's the only thing I've ever done. And ask me if I knew anything about insurance before law school. I knew nothing.
Yeah, sure.
You know, once you
And what would
peel
you tell
back-
someone who was thinking about it? I mean, what kind of law would you, how would you help somebody figure out what they want to do in this space?
Yeah. Well, I would start by thinking about what kind of career you want to have. Are you the type of person who's cut out to be battling day in and day out, right? Because that's what a litigator might do, right? Someone who goes into immigration or who goes into estate planning might have a much more relaxed job. You might have demanding
You
clients.
seem like a pretty laid back guy though, but you're in there battling it out.
You've just been very nice to me, and you haven't out. Well, it's extremely important to be measured. I mean, look, you know, would I get any results if I sent letters and called the insurance company and said, you're horrible, this is bad faith, you're going down, we're gonna burn everything to the ground, you're gonna pay? No, you know, I mean, no one at the insurance company thinks they're actively engaged in a conspiracy to screw people, right? They're just doing their jobs. And so you have to be very measured. And so, you know, if I'm not completely polite to somebody, it's because they've blown every chance they've gotten from me to deal with me politely.
Yeah. I can't see you getting too upset, but maybe you can turn it on when you need to.
Oh, well, you know, I'm very careful to make sure if I'm going to get upset, I can back it up. And you're a nice guy. And so if you want to talk about the war in Ukraine or anything, I'll start getting.
Oh boy, that's I mean, it's hard not to keep thinking about that. It's really devastating.
But you know, there are plenty of things to get upset over in this business. I mean, for example, talking about people thinking about what kind of career they might want to go into in law. A lot of these defense firms who are defending the insurance companies, they'll just bill hours, you know, they'll just bill the case, a case that they can resolve within a month or two, they'll bill it for a year so they can get $100,000 in fees on the file before they resolve it. And that kind of thing frustrates me.
Yeah, sure.
Game playing that you see can be extremely frustrating. But at the same time, you take this job one day at a time and you keep your cool, and you'll learn how to overcome almost any problem. And if you can't overcome a problem, you learn how to deal with it, right? Because, you know, again, we're managing risk here.
You're managing risk, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, keep pushing and you can get me upset and I'll show you all the nasty daggers.
You know, we get enough of that playing out today, so we're going to have a nice civil conversation. I appreciate that though. Let me ask you this: technology, it's everywhere. AI, you know, big data analytics. I mean, what's your view on that in the legal space, and do you use it?
We do use it. So our firm is 30 lawyers in various
30 lawyers, okay.
states. So we get a lot of benefit from software we use. We're actually currently using something designed by Salesforce called Litify.
What's it called? Oh, Litify. Yeah, sure. I'm familiar with it.
We were one of the first firms to adopt it. And so we had like a 1 to 2 year onboarding process where they were just designing it for us. So it's very helpful, and it can be tedious, you know, to update things like case projections and costs and when you think a case might close, but it's very good for business analytics. And there's so much technology that helps us do our job faster than we used to be able to do it, that, you know, it's almost like, yeah, these extra benefits technology can get us, they may take more time as, you know, practice management software gets more sophisticated, you have to input more data. But really, you know, we've gotten so much benefit in terms of speed and efficiency from technology. It's okay to, you know, then take a step back and start adding these analytics. And they just really help you see patterns and see things that work, see things that don't work, make sure you're staying on track of things. And again, from a business perspective, when we're working on contingency, you know, can have 25 cases at a time, outlaying, you know, 25 to 100 grand each. Cases can take a couple years sometimes to resolve. It's just very important to keep track of that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a big believer in CRM, but the adoption of it and the implementation of it is very hard, right?
It's very hard. So our firm, we have a CFO, we have someone who's in charge of the software issue, we have an IT department.
Okay.
So we have the infrastructure and the overhead, right, that it takes to successfully implement these softwares, but they're still burdensome, they're still expensive. And for small firms, 3 to 5 lawyers and 1 manager, maybe 1 accountant, it can be pretty hard. I think there are some more watered down versions of the software for firms like that. But don't get me wrong, they do take a lot of time to put in. And if you're a small practitioner, you don't have that time.
Yeah. Well, the magic happens once people realize that the benefit is for them and not the firm. Then the adoption goes way up, because let's face it, you can't keep everything in your head, and you have a lot of things going on at the same time. You have to document it, and as you said, there's a ton of analytics and data that you can glean from it if you do it correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in that. But managing a large sales organizations over the years, it's one of the toughest things to implement. People, it's just against their nature. Nobody wants to take the time documenting things, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know if the pandemic forced that, but it's funny by analogy. There's a lot of these new practices we do, even just remote work, working from home, doing more depots and court appearance by video. These are things the industry was very resistant to because people don't want to change, and the pandemic forced it. And I think the more technology that comes out that helps lawyers practice, the firms that don't use it are going to realize they're at a disadvantage. We have a service we pay for. I can see any trial court's ruling on, a related issue throughout the whole state and most of the country with a search. That's incredibly helpful. Most of the time it's very hard to access, trial court rulings. I can get insights on my trial court judge who's ruling on a big motion, where normally, those orders aren't published anywhere, and they're very impossible to find unless it's your case and you get the order in your case. So those technologies will improve how people practice. It'll start, the playing field will go like this, and then I think people will realize how important they are, and it'll fast forward the adoption of them. But I'll say one more thing, they can be very expensive as well. And so there's certainly a cost-effective analysis to be done with some of these softwares. Yeah,
I mean, as long as there's a commensurate return on investment, then the cost goes away, right? So, and people have to use the technology.
Yeah, and lawyers are busy, so it takes an investment of time where it's not direct profit return to learn the softwares, but if you force yourself to use it, you will see returns, and eventually you will see more efficient ways to practice.
Yeah, and it's a generational thing. I mean, if you're on the younger side, then you're more willing probably to adopt technology versus the old guard, right? So you have that friction there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, for a little while, I'm starting to feel like I'm behind the curve now.
Exactly. Eventually, you become the older guy, right? And you have new things pushing up against you. It's a cycle. Anyway, well, listen, this has been incredibly interesting. I learned a lot about this business from you, so I appreciate that. How would somebody, if they want to get in touch with you, how would they contact you? What's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch would just be to shoot me an email directly. You can find my information on the Merlin Law Group website. You might even be able to find my cell phone number on there, because I'm pretty good at giving that out.
Okay.
And, we have a team of folks who we trust very well who help us look at new cases as well. And so if you're interested in us helping you out, I always try to contact people right away and give them my high-level input, but then we have a team who can make sure we get all the details we need, and again, do a really thorough analysis of the case up front before we even offer you a retainer agreement. So we can tell you, hey, these are what we see your case having value in. This is how we'd recommend approaching it, rather than just say, yeah, sure, sign the retainer, we'll file a lawsuit. When the trial date comes 2 years from now, we'll start looking at your case. We try to We try to select our cases very carefully. We're not the kind of mill that just churns and burns. Our clients get a lot of personalized attention. So if you're looking, to work with us, we might ask for, a lot of details up front and you to get us a lot of documentation, but we really aim to provide stellar white glove service for all our customers. And some of them even agree we do.
Excellent. Well, good. I'm going to wrap it up. Again, I want to thank Dan Veroff from Merlin Law Group for spending some time with us today. And thanks to our sponsor, EmotionTrac, which is a AI-based platform that helps with case preparation for trials and mediation. And thank you very much.